So it's Prince Harry's last day in Malawi and he took time out to talk about climate change. So let's have a quick look and we'll do some commentary along the way.
Prince Harry has weighed in on the climate change debate while visiting a forest known for elephant poaching in Malawi. 7 News correspondent Laurel Irving has the latest on the royal tour of Africa in Johannesburg. And Laurel, they're both issues very close to his heart.
Eddie, Prince Harry has long had a great love of Africa. He calls it his second home. And in Malawi, that country really struggles with the trade of illegal wildlife, especially of elephants and rhinos. And he's clearly very concerned about the future of the country. Conservation is very much a focus while he's in Malawi. In fact, he's even taken control of the National Geographic Instagram account to mark the occasion, posting a photograph that he took of some trees in Malawi and then a snap that somebody else took of him taking that photo lying on the ground. Look, he's spoken before pretty passionately about the issue of climate change. It's clearly something that he cares deeply about, but we've rarely heard him speak as clearly as this. Take a listen.
We are literally driving ourselves to extinction. I know people have said that before, and this kind of seems to be a bit of a narrative that's being covered across the globe at the
Yeah, so he's obviously getting on the Greta Thunberg. I'm going to call her Thunberg because I think that's the correct way to pronounce it in Swedish. But it's like Prince Harry's either been brainwashed here or he's part of the Thunberg bandwagon, I call it. I don't think we've got any risk of being extinct. What will happen is the planet will just be in a new equilibrium. And sure, we might lose some low-lying areas such as Kiribati and so forth, but also they're showing that in the colder parts of the world, they're actually growing crops up, in Greenland and so forth, and so it'll find another equilibrium. It's always changing. I've got no doubt that it's man-made. We've basically accelerated the carbon cycle, but I think it'll just create. I'm sure, it's worth doing. It's worth cutting back on carbon emissions. But as I said in other videos, we need to work on population control. We can't just keep populating the planet as it is, because the main issue for me is air quality. Everyone can argue till the cows come home whether it's man-made or not, but the simple fact is that the more you pump carbon pollution into the air, the more polluted the air becomes. Nobody can argue with that, can they? So just the fact that we need to increase air quality is one of the big reasons to cut back on carbon emissions, in my book. But I know. They're finding troubles with extreme weather events and unpredictable weather, and I don't personally. Actually, I'll go full screen on this so you can watch me. Personally, I don't think it's going to be stopped, because these so-called developed countries such as India and China seems to think they're still developed, but I don't think so. I guess they're going to call themselves developing until the whole country is middle class. But now they're pushing. I don't know. India's pushing to not be part of the targets, because they're saying they're a developing country. They need cheap energy. Coal's the cheapest energy. Blah blah blah. So I don't know. It's going to be tough times ahead convincing the developing countries to cut back on carbon emissions, and also, the more developed they get, the bigger the carbon footprint's going to be, because that's just logic. That's what happens. That's why America's one of the most developed countries in the world, and they've got one of the highest carbon footprints. And big issues ahead. But I don't think humans are going to become extinct. There's going to be probably mass migration out of places in the world that are going to be very difficult to live in if the temperature rises and the sea levels and so forth. But don't think humans are going to become extinct. They'll just be moving around quite a bit. Okay, and there'll be food shortages if we keep populating ourselves like this. So let's get back onto the video now. So he was basically saying that there's a movement of this thought of mass extinction of humans.
Moment, but there are so many problems, and a vast majority of them, not all of them, but a vast majority of them, that the root cause of that is what we're doing to the climate.
So tomorrow he comes back here to South Africa, where Megan and Archie have been now for a couple of days. Megan has had some private visits, including to a local arts centre where she was greeted very warmly by kids. She's always said she's a hugger. Lots of hugs and a denim overall set for baby Archie. Just what every 5-month-old baby needs, Eddie.
Must get myself one. Thank you very much for that, Laurel. Nice to see the family reunion in the coming days. Guys, back to you.
Thanks very much, Eddie.
Okay, so what gets me is, he's being very bold and he's talking about these political issues, but he's just not bringing up population control. And he's in Africa, which I was showing many times in my previous video that it's the highest growing population in the world, the highest growing continent. So let's get on to Safari. So highest growing population by continent. Oops. Get onto my Safari window in a sec. There we go. Preview window. Safari. So talking about the total population, India and China, 4.5 billion people. Yes, this what gets me is, Greta's going on about Europe, not doing enough, and we need to concentrate on China and India for a start, and also the population growth in Africa. Oh, there you go. Let's put this back on. And it's just not being talked about, is it? We've got projections of population growth. We've got African population 2019. Somebody brought up in the comments, I think I accidentally deleted it, about the infant mortality rate, but that's taken into account with you can have a high fertility, and unless the infant mortality rate is 5 out of 7, it's going to be above 2. It's just logic. So I don't know what she was on about. This lady that was commenting in my section. Sometimes I reply to comments and I accidentally hit the delete button. So apologies for if your comments just disappear. Sometimes it's just an accident. Because as the page refreshes, it's the actual position where my finger went is actually in a different position. I hit the delete, so whoops. Because it doesn't, YouTube doesn't give you the option to say yes to delete or just delete it, and I can't get it back. Alright, so back to this. Africa to lead world in population growth. So, as I said before, actually she was bagging me, so good riddance if I deleted it. But Africa's population growth jeopardised efforts to fight poverty, while immigration is expected to fuel US population growth. Yeah, so basically a lot of the policies for Europe and especially Australia, they want more immigration because our fertility rate is so low and our population is going to decrease unless we bring more immigrants in. So here we go. It just talks about it's just there's no denying that Africa's population is going to be the fastest increasing in the world. So anyway, never gets talked about. Harry's in Africa. You think that to talk about, but I guess it's a little bit too controversial. If he's going to get into politics, him and Meghan, they're going to get into politics, start talking about these issues, tackle them head on. Say, I'm in Africa. We need to talk about contraception. We need to talk about population growth, education of women, which they're doing. They're doing it in a roundabout way. They're probably tackling it from that end, and just avoiding the big issue of population growth in Africa, because and I think China's probably going to start ramping up again as well. Yeah, so they're back to their 2-child policy now, aren't they? Let's see, look that up as well. China children policy. They used to have 1-child policy and their population started decreasing. Iraq's a 1-child policy, so now they can have 2 children if one parent rather than both parents was an only child. Okay, fair enough. Alright. Okay, we'll leave it there. Got some news coming through today. I actually had a rest last night. I was feeling a bit run down, so back to the grindstone today, and doing some more videos tonight. So stay tuned. Cheers.